I need to tell you something before I start. I am not someone who believes in the paranormal. I am an engineer. I solve problems with data. I trust what I can measure, what I can prove, what I can hold in my hands and examine under light. I am telling you this because what I am about to describe cannot be measured, cannot be proven, cannot be explained by any framework I was trained to trust. And it started with my dog. His name is Ruger. He is a 4-year-old Belgian Malinois. 68 pounds of muscle and instinct. The kind of dog that does not spook easily. The kind of dog that has never once in 4 years barked at nothing. Until 6 weeks ago. It started on a Tuesday night in late January. I remember the date because I had just finished a late project deadline, and I had only been asleep for 2 hours when I heard him. A low growl, not aggressive, not playful. The specific growl he uses when something is wrong. The one that raises every hair on the back of my neck, because in 4 years, that growl has never been wrong. I sat up in bed. The room was dark. Ruger was standing at the foot of the bed, completely rigid, every muscle locked, his eyes fixed on the east wall of the bedroom. I looked at the wall. Smooth white paint, a framed photograph, a light switch, nothing else. I checked the time. 17 a.m. I got up, checked the house, checked the doors, checked the windows, checked outside. Nothing. I brought Ruger back to bed. He settled eventually. I told myself it was an animal outside. A sound carried through the wall. Something too high-pitched for my ears, but perfectly audible to his. I went back to sleep. The next night at exactly 3:17 a.m. he did it again. Same wall, same rigid posture, same growl, same. Time I checked my phone to be certain. 3:17 a.m. Not 3:16, not. Tracing bright, I am an engineer. Coincidences interest me. 2 identical events at identical times is not a coincidence, it is a pattern. And patterns have causes. I spent the next 3 days running every logical explanation I could. Construct. Possibility 1. An animal in the walls, rats, squirrels, something. Nesting. I hired a pest control company. They swept the entire house. Nothing. Possibility. 2. A sound source outside. A machine. A vehicle. A neighbor's equipment. Cycling. On a timer at 3:17 every morning. I stood outside. For 4 consecutive nights at 3 a.m. dead. Silence each time. Possibility. 3. Something. Electromagnetic. A field or frequency that Ruger could detect, and I could not. I bought an EMF meter, Renault, it along the east wall every evening for a week, completely flat readings every single night. When at the end of week 2, Ruger had growled at that wall 14 consecutive times, always the same wall, always the same corner, always 3:17 a.m., never a minute before, never a minute after. I had eliminated every explanation I could think of, so I ordered a thermal imaging camera. The camera arrived on a Friday. I mounted it on a tripod angle directly at the east wall and the corner Ruger focused on. I set it to record continuously through the night with motion triggered alert sent to my phone. I checked every setting twice. Went to bed at 11. I set no alarm. I told myself the data would tell me what I needed to know. At 3:17 a.m., my phone lit up. Motion detected. I opened the app with shaking hands and looked at the thermal footage. Ruger was standing at the foot of the bed, every muscle locked, growling, at the east wall. And on the wall, in the exact corner he had been, growling at for 14 consecutive nights, was a shape. I want to be precise about what I saw, because precision matters to me, and I will not exaggerate a single detail. The shape on the thermal camera was approximately 5 feet tall, vertical, roughly the outline of a person standing completely still, pressed against the interior surface of the wall. Not on the wall, not a reflection, not a temperature variation in the paint or plaster. The shape was behind the wall, generating heat. A heat signature consistent with a living body, pressed flat against the interior of my bedroom wall, in a space that does not exist. I measured that wall the following morning. 6 inches thick. Standard residential drywall construction. No cavity, no gap, no space for anything to occupy. The shape was there for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Then it faded, as if whatever was generating it simply stopped. Ruger stopped growling at exactly the same moment the shape disappeared. He walked to his bed in the corner, lay down, and went to sleep as if nothing had happened. I did not sleep at all. I spent the following week trying to explain the thermal image. I contacted 2 thermal imaging specialists. I sent them the footage without context, asked them to tell me what they were looking at. The first one told me it was a person, then asked me why there was a person inside my wall. When I told him there was no space for a person inside my wall, he stopped responding. The second specialist, a woman who had worked in building diagnostics for 20 years, told me the heat signature was consistent with a human body, maintaining a core temperature of approximately 98 degrees. She said the shape was too defined and too consistent to be a pipe or electrical source. She said she had never seen a reading like it in 20 years of work. Then she asked me if anyone had died in that house. I told her I didn't know. I had owned the house for 3 years. I bought it as a new build. No previous owners, no history. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, new builds are constructed on land that has its own history, even when the building does not. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I looked up the land registry for my property. What I found took the floor out from under me. Before my house was built, the land my bedroom sits on was part of a larger plot. That plot contained a structure, a small residential building demolished in 2019 to make way for the development my house is part of. I found the demolition records. I found the planning applications. And buried in a local newspaper archive from March 2018, I found a brief article. A man had been found dead in that building, in the bedroom. Cause of death ruled as natural causes. He was discovered 3 days after he died by a neighbor who noticed the lights had not changed. His name was in the article. I will not share it here, but I looked him up. I found his date of birth. He had died at the age of 61 in the early hours of a Tuesday morning in January. 11 years ago, I checked my records. The first night Ruger growled at the wall was a Tuesday in January at 3:17 a.m. I have run the thermal camera every night since. The shape appears on Tuesdays only. Always January through February, based on the 6 weeks I have been recording. Always 3:17 a.m. Always 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Always the same corner. I have not told my wife the full story yet. She knows about the camera. She knows about the recordings. She does not know about the man, or the building, or the date. Last Tuesday, I sat in the bedroom alone, with the lights off, and watched the thermal camera feed live on my phone. At 3:17, the shape appeared, and this time, for the first time, Ruger did not growl. He walked slowly to the wall, stood directly in front of the corner, and sat down. The way he sits when he meets someone new. Calm, still, tail moving slowly, as if he was simply sitting with someone. I watched him for the full 4 minutes and 11 seconds. He did not move. He did not make a sound. When the shape faded, he stood up, walked back to his bed, and lay down. I turned the lights back on, and I sat in that room for a long time. Because here is the thing about being an engineer, about trusting only what you can measure, only what you can prove. Sometimes the data gives you an answer you were not prepared to receive. I cannot explain what is in my wall. I cannot explain why it comes on Tuesdays. I cannot explain why my dog, who has never been wrong, no longer seems afraid of it. What I can tell you is this. Whatever is there has been there every Tuesday for 11 years. Long before my house existed. Long before I moved in. Long before Ruger was born. And last Tuesday night, when my dog sat down in front of that wall, calm and still and completely at peace, I turned off my phone, put down the camera feed, and I said out loud to an empty room, I don't know who you are, but you were here first, and I'm sorry nobody came to sit with you sooner. The light in the room flickered once, then held steady. Ruger looked back at me over his shoulder, then turned back to the wall, and that was enough. If you have experienced something in your home, something your animal noticed before you did, something that science could not explain but data could not deny, send it to WhenDarkSpeaks. Every story is read. Every story that cannot be explained will be told. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing is not what the data shows you. It is what you feel when you finally stop being afraid of it. The dark has spoken. Sleep if you can.